And we are back. Let's try to sign it. Like, we are back. Yay!
How's it going?
Good, man. So actually, I don't think we had time in our last clip to cover some of this, but what I really wanted to just touch on, talking about comics and reading and all of that, was some stuff that I kind of went through my collection, and as I was going through those graphic novel, those collected ones from Eagle Moss, I was going through seeing titles and going, pretty sure I've got that somewhere. Kind of went through the bookshelves, sanitized things, and I came up with quite a few duplicate graphic novels that I have. So I want to give those to you, dude.
Hardcore,
add
dude.
to your collection. Yeah,
Thanks,
I mean, I know they're going to a good home, and rather than try and run this hassle of selling them or whatever, I thought, let me just give them to you. And I thought I would, they're all good, in my opinion, and good reads. As I was looking through them, maybe it's because I focused more on the Marvel side, but it should help bolster your Marvel collection.
Definitely, dude. I'm definitely lacking Marvel, so I really appreciate it. That's awesome, and it also helps with the budgeting during lockdown. So I got some stuff to read. So thank you, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the one that I got here it's a Punisher one.
Nice.
It's Punisher Circle of Blood. Quite cool, and the art is actually quite cool in it. So that, I know you like Punisher, so
who doesn't, man?
Interested to see what you think of that read. And then one that I've actually got so many, this is like, I think the third copy of, but the X-Men Dark Phoenix saga.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's definitely a classic one. It was a Chris Claremont, John Byrne, timeless classic. I mean, I'm interested to see if you enjoy that.
I don't know if I've ever told you the story. Sorry I'm interrupting, but it was so hilarious, dude. I got invited to a Dark Phoenix screening when it came out, and there's a mutual acquaintance of ours. Shout out to him. He does a lot of comic media called Zack, and he thought when he gripped me and pulled me to the side, he'd have the perfect guy to interview. And the first thing he nails out is like, "So you read the comic, right?" And I was like, "No, I haven't read Dark Phoenix." And he kind of stood there and he was like, "Well, that didn't go the way I planned," because I don't know, somehow the story just over my head, dude. It's just one of those Marvel titles, X-Men titles I haven't read. So that's a huge welcome. I can just brush up my knowledge.
There's one here, Spider-Man Reign.
Oh, cool.
Which is, quite a darkish twist on Spider-Man. I enjoyed the book. It was one of these things with the twist and everything where I was just like, oh, wow. It's almost like a Spider-Man The End type of story. I think you'll enjoy it. A good read, tug on the heartstrings one. Then one that's definitely right up your alley, and I don't know if you have it or not, but Daredevil, The Man Without Fear.
Nice.
Definitely. So this is the Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. one, which is, I think it's between this and the other one that Miller did with Mazzucchelli, that people would say it's like the greatest Daredevil stories ever. So that's for you.
Is that the Reborn story or not?
Yes, I think the Reborn one is.
Well, I don't know if I've got
the
it
one
right.
that Kelly and him did.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, is Iron Man Demon in a Bottle?
Oh, cool. That's on his whole drinking storyline.
Correct. Yeah, and you can actually see him like all.
Oh, nice. That's an actual cover from the issue. Yeah.
So again, I've got that in that graphic novel hardcover collection, and this is a nice hardcover too, prestige hardcover. So it's a nice one to add to the collection. And then there are two DC ones that I've got in a larger collected one when Grant Morrison did JLA, Justice League. The first one is the New World Order.
Nice.
And there's actually the Justice League animated episode that was based, a two-part that was based on this.
Okay.
Excellent story, and dude, you're gonna love it because Batman in this is like amazing.
Nice.
And then another classic that was also, it's been redone a few times in the animated stuff, and it was also done on the TV show, Justice League Earth 2.
Oh, geez, and Quietly and Morrison. They work well together.
Yeah,
So
man. And this whole story is the Justice League finds an Earth 2 where they've got Ultraman, Owlman, etc., etc. And they actually did an animated movie based on this one. It's such a good read, dude. And again,
nice.
Batman versus Owlman, it's epic.
Yes, dude.
So I think you'll enjoy those.
I don't even know where to start. That's epic. Thanks, dude. It's huge.
Sure, man. And on that note, actually, I actually wanted to give a shout out and make mention of my one friend Sharon, and maybe give a shout out to her and her little son Blake. But this last weekend was their first trip to a comic book store.
Nice.
So she started watching our channel. She subscribed. Every time a new video comes out, she watches it. And oh man, I get the rundown, I get the critique, I get the tips and things to look out for them. I'm like, thanks a lot. But mostly off the back of my first review of Sex Criminals, number 1. It just resonated with her. So she messaged me after watching it, asking where she could track it down, where she could get it. I put her in touch with our local store, with Cosmic Comics. Shout out to Karen and the team at Cosmic. And lo and behold, they had a copy for her. And I think they're actually, she loved it so much that they've arranged 2 to 5 for her that they're bringing in. And so she's read it. She's loved the first volume. And while she was there to pick it up, her little Blake ran around quickly and she got him some comics too. So the other night she sent me a picture. She came home and there he was on the couch reading his comic books too. So
that's so cool, man.
I mean, dude, that's the reason we're doing this, is to hope if we can get one new reader, like inspire one kid to pick up a comic and delve into this world that we love. I just thought I had to mention that and just say hi to them, give them a shout out. But I'm just so glad that they're getting what we get. They're getting the magic of comic books in their world.
And you know what's so cool about that, dude, is that, you know, barring what you just said, is that it wasn't, I saw Endgame, so I want a Thanos comic. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you talked about some random image title. It is image. It's not even a superhero story, which is also just driving the point that comics have other good stories besides superheroes. You know, so the fact that worked out the way it did is really cool, you know, because it's easy for me to go into the street and sell someone on a Deadpool comic because I've seen the movie. But when it's some totally different story from, let's face it, most average people don't even know who the hell Image Comics are, you know. So it really means that the material matters and that the reading matters. It's not like a fashion statement, and that's cool. Correct. Because it's about the comic then.
100%, and she's totally hooked. She's invested, and she's eager to see where the story's going to go, just like I am. So I won't lie, it actually felt good. And yes, it's a friend of mine, someone I know, granted, but someone who has no clue about comics, had no interest in it, and just what we're doing, how we're doing it, appeals to her, resonated with her. Obviously, some episodes she's preferred over others, granted, they're natural with everybody, but just the fact that one thing that we did hit home and inspired people, that's
awesome, dude. That's all we could ask for.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Dude,
Sorry, just had to put that out there.
Yeah. No. It's super cool. Like, I'm really stoked that you talked about that. Dude, I don't know if you're keen, but it's just, I feel like we should talk about it because it's in news and it's comic book world. And you might roll your eyes, but because we've talked about it a little bit, but release the Snyder Cut. So, and then there's
just let my baby Yoda speak for me, baby Yoda.
Nice. Dude, I can see you're going to have a room full of pop soon. I'm just saying. I'm going to laugh at you.
Shut up. But, so what's your take or your thoughts on not just release the Snyder Cut, but just the concept of it?
Dude, so I have got mixed feelings, and this is going to be random, but what I am happy about, dude, is that, you know, it really frustrates me, dude, that you got this whole today where people need it. constantly jump on bandwagons. They're like sheep. They can't think for themselves, you know. And I've talked to you about that a lot, where if Rotten Tomatoes or someone says something's going to be terrible, everyone's like, oh, well, it's terrible. And I'm like, go and actually watch it, you fool, and make up your own mind, you know. And what was
sometimes when Rotten Tomatoes gives it a bad rating, it almost inspires me to ignore it and push past it to see.
Yeah. So I just want to, off the bat, and the reason I brought it up is because you and I have slightly different opinions on some of the DC films I'm going to talk about, which is why I wanted to bring it up again. So just off the bat, I want to say, like, I'm a pretty big Zack Snyder fan. You know, Sucker Punch it's still one of my favorite films, and just the writing and the narration and stuff. What his take on Watchmen, I thought was really good, even though there's a fundamental change. I thought it was.
But I enjoyed it, man. His take for me was more accessible to an everyday audience.
Yeah. Even though, I mean, it was like like a 3-hour film, he still manages that. And I do want to come back to that, how long his films are. So, dude, when he started on this DC trip thing, like, some of this I know for a fact, and others it's just me assuming and guessing and stuff. But the first place we sort of disagree on is Man of Steel, which is his sort of first shot at it. And I enjoyed the film, and I don't know if you want to talk to that, but I know you didn't really like the tone of it.
I didn't. No. For me, Superman, he's an icon, and I feel that they. If we have to reference comic books, I feel that when Alan Moore did Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, when Grant Morrison does All-Star Superman, when Jeff Johns recently does Doomsday Clock, the way that these guys understand and portray Superman is he's the beacon, he's hope, he's, when all else is failed, and even if we look at the recent Apocalypse War, you know, it's almost like, geez, the fact that Darkseid took out Supes, infused him with kryptonite and took out the big gun, hope was lost. And when things happen and Supes comes back and starts, you know, just balls to the wall, handling the guy, there's hope. And I just felt that Zack Snyder's one was dark. There was just the way he portrayed the Kents, his father, just a lot of it just missed for me. It didn't sit right, in my opinion.
Yeah, so
there's no hope, I say.
So there is a reason I brought that up, because it's now I enjoyed it just as a standalone film, but I take your critique and I understand it fully, especially from a comic book point of view. And it's interesting because what frustrated me is there wasn't, that I know of, too much fan banter and too many people that lost their minds. There was quite a big audience that liked Man of Steel, but then came Batman versus Superman. And this was the height around where it was clear that Warner were getting involved, pushing agendas and stuff. And to me, in retrospect of what you said, it's clear that Zack Snyder should have started a Batman universe. Man of Steel should have been a Batman movie. It would have really changed so much. So to me, you had now this combination of Zack Snyder trying to tell these long, intricate, played out, very artistic stories. And then you had Warner that were like, we need to catch up to the MCU. And I can't say this for a fact, but I suspect it started there, where they're like, we need to catch them. We need to make a Justice League film, and soon, because Marvel are coming to this climax. And just purely on, if you see how long Zack's films are, I think if Warner had given him the time, he would have done 10 years worth of movies. He would have done a solo Batman film and this and that, and built it up the way it should have. But then they kind of
put this... Superman, Batman was almost like a mesh. Let's try and thrust the big three together into a movie to almost catapult, kickstart the Justice League journey.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Too soon, in a way, a bit rushed.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's where the first problem started, you know. And I don't know if that was Zack's idea or if it was a combination of Warner wanting to get to that Justice League pinnacle as quick as they could. And at first, I'll be honest, dude, I watched Batman vs. Superman in the cinemas, and I was kind of like, I left there feeling so uncertain, and I wasn't happy. And after seeing the director's cut, it filled in so many gaps of Luthor's plan and stuff. And I don't want to talk too much about that, but overall, I was still happy. But and I saw, like, I saw a lot of strengths in Ben Affleck's Batman, and you could see Snyder related to Batman as a character way more. It was definitely a Batman movie. It should have been just a Batman movie. But anyway,
yeah. And so I thought at that point, Affleck's Batman was badass, man. Just the way he looked, he got himself jacked for that role. I was excited for Affleck as Batman, personally.
Yeah, and that's where you and I are spot on. And the problem is, dude, then obviously it went... Batman vs. Superman had mixed, things. People gunned it a lot. And that's where, especially the movie critique people, like, started gunning in and saying Batman vs. Superman was terrible. And there's other aspects I loved. I loved how they, in the opening credits, went through his origin story, just for anyone who hadn't seen it, it's like, okay, that's out the way. But not taking time from the film, And I thought there's little things like that were clever. But because now the movie critics and everything were going, it was such a screw up. From then, I saw the Zack Snyder hate. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, Zack Snyder's lost it, this, that. And all of a sudden, there was this magical hate for him. Also, there was this hate for Ben Affleck, and then this love for him. And then all of a sudden, when they saw how bad the movie did, everyone's like, yeah, no, he wasn't that good, and he wasn't this, that. And there's all these little fanboy clubs of people not making up their own minds.
Going back to what you were saying earlier on, the sheep mentality kicked in quite heavily there.
Yeah, and I'm going to skip and jump quite a bit forward there. And what frustrates me is then came Justice League. And you enjoyed, and that's also why I wanted to bring it up, because you enjoyed, the way they changed the story and stuff. And I kind of left there going, I don't know. There's parts of it I liked.
It's difficult to say if I enjoyed the way they changed the story, because I don't know, I don't have a reference point. But what I did like was, and I don't know if it's Snyder's influence or portrayal, or if it was on Whedon's influence, but there were certain things, the way that they portrayed Superman for me, I felt was right. I.e., the guy literally takes on the entire Justice League by himself and just floors them.
Yeah.
Then later on in the movie, going up against Steppenwolf or whatever it was, like, they hold their own, but it's only when Soups arrives that Soups just puts him in
so
his locker.
What's interesting, dude, is, again, none of this is confirmed, but I'm sure you heard that there was Superman in black costume in the original cut, and they completely took it out. So apparently the scene where Soups takes on the Justice League, that's extended. It's a way bigger arc in the film. They struggle even more to get through to him, and like, it was a bigger part, and they cut that and toned that down. And so that's things that have started making me
sad, because if that's how it's supposed to, it would have been a better story to show that darker side of him and pull him back to the light, etc.
Yeah. So, and then I don't think this seemed to have skipped news, but what a lot of people don't realize is, obviously, then originally there was, obviously everyone got excited about Batman or Affleck and stuff, and he was supposed to have his own trilogy. But what people don't realize is where the mixture started coming up is, apparently Affleck took on so much pressure from just critique. He was planning on directing and helping write and performing the role. And apparently, like, he just became he became a shadow of himself. And he actually had close friends talking to him, like, saying to him, like, what the fuck are you doing to yourself? Because apparently he was drinking himself stupid. He had to go to rehab, because there was just so much pressure. And that's when he actually just took a huge step back, and he was like, I'm out. Which is really sad, because it has left things sort of, no one knows what's really going on. But so there's a combination of that. But now apparently there is mixed reports. But obviously, because of the fan cult saying that they released the Snyder Cut, you see all these people being like, just leave it as it is. Snyder would have screwed it up. Snyder this. And I'm like, these are all the same people that were cheering for Snyder. Again, it's that sheep mentality. So I'm excited, dude, because they say there's a lot of parallels and similarities to the animation Apocalypse War to what Snyder was trying to do. So essentially, apparently, Justice League, the movie one, was supposed to be this idea that Superman, it does go off the rails for a while, and some of Batman's visions come true. And then what they do is they have to eventually take on Steppenwolf. And as they get, like, they defeat him, they see through the boom tube that he is going through. You see Darkseid, and the film ends. And just like the animation, you have movie 2, because remember, Justice League was supposed to be a trilogy. So movie 2, and the Lanterns were in the film. So just a side note, I don't know if you remember, in that trailer, There's a part of the trailer where Alfred looks up and he's like, I was wondering when you were going to come, or something like that. That was Hal Jordan in the original cut. And then they changed it to Superman and all that in the Whedon cut and stuff. Yeah. But so anyway, so then movie 2 was supposed to be Superman. You know, Henry Cavill goes, listen, we just saw basically evil itself. We got to take the fight to him. And they go intergalactic and stuff. But what happens in the second movie is everything goes to shit.
And they get their asses handed to them, etc.
100%. And it basically, Batman's visions come true. And then what movie 3 is...
apocalyptic kind of future, etc.
Yeah. And you see that Superman flying down and Batman chained up and Superman's full on evil and all this stuff, which is, I'm assuming it's maybe because Lois dies. That's just my suspicion. So that he loses all his hope and he just goes full on. Again, it's just a suspicion. And then movie 3 is when they figure out how to get Flash to go back and change something slightly to make the events play out differently. But the problem with that is the minute you see that, you think of Avengers Endgame. And you see how DC constantly has this problem where they have these similar stories that's happening. You know, I talked about Scarlet Witch and Zatanna potentially, you know, and how it's this constant, like, man, I feel bad for them. You know, the only way the one place they have one up on Marvel is that they did Aquaman first, and now it's clear that Marvel's going to do Namor at some point because...
Sure.
Interesting thing, dude. I didn't know this, but apparently, technically speaking, if you look at the comics, Namor was actually the first mutant. I don't know how true that is. And I had no idea, which is really cool.
But back then, they didn't call him a mutant or anything. Yeah. But when you look at what he is, he's a combination of part human, part Atlantean, and he's got powers that Atlanteans don't have because of that crossing over of the DNA one to the other. It's spawned this hybrid that has abilities and powers, i.e. a mutant.
Yeah.
So in the truest sense of the word, and at one stage in the comics, he joins the X-Men as a mutant, etc. And then I think somewhere along the line, I don't know if it was Dr. Doom or someone turns him against them. It was actually quite a cool story. I can't remember where it was, but it was a dedicated Submariner title. It's quite good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so dude, in a nutshell, I mean, even, and again, this is a personal choice thing, but Whedon apparently had so much influence where he went back and he even changed all the music, and Danny Elfman did the music. Now, Danny Elfman is a genius. He did Nightmare Before Christmas, Spider-Man. But
Danny Elfman did the original Batman movie, and that spawned the animated series theme song based on Danny Elfman. He's my god. He's even doing a masterclass. I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah.
You can, like Gaiman, he's a Danny Elfman masterclass. I'm like,
yeah. So that's the thing, dude. Now, I've always gravitated towards Hans Zimmer because he's a genius in his own right, and I don't think you can one up either of them. They're both geniuses, but they write music so differently.
Correct. Their compositions are radically different to each other.
Exactly. And so interestingly, what I want to see is, I think the original cut, Snyder's cut, had Zimmer doing the score because he did Batman versus Superman. And I'm interested to see if they're going to go back, if Snyder's going to insist on it being such a radical change where it gets re-scored and stuff, because apparently there is budget being allocated to it. Dude, and I don't know if you saw, then HBO Max is also doing a Green Lantern series, which I'm intrigued.
I did. I want to know about the Snyder. I've also heard stories or rumors with the Snyder Cut that it might not be one thing. They might even break it down episodically into 3 or 4 episodes because of how much there is that he wants to tell.
Exactly. So that is a rumor. It's not confirmed, but they're saying, because his original cut was like something like 4 hours. So they're saying maybe because it's on HBO Max, they could make a 4-part. What I'm interested to see is, and I think there's a very good reason Warner haven't said this, because everyone's just assuming it's a one-off fan thing. Here you go. But I think if it does well enough, they might consider going, fuck, maybe we should make this continuity. And then that becomes, because everyone seems, and what I want to see, what I'm very interested in, the reason why I brought up Ben Affleck, walking away and stuff, is because everyone was a big advocate for it. And I know it's more marketing and more money for them, so it's in their interest too. But, Affleck, I don't know if you saw, I think I was on Kevin Smith's show. I'm actually sending the clip to you. He talked about it and he said how psyched he is. So I think he might even consider coming back for reshoots if they want to do, which
I saw somewhere on one of our Facebook channels in our thing, something like apparently Cavill has said or signed off that he'll do some more Superman movies, either dedicated Superman movies or come back as Superman. So
yeah, dude, like I know we don't see all the news, but from what I can see, like Cavill's just keen, dude. He's like, I think he's keen to play Superman till he dies. If nothing conflicts with it, if Warner just treat him right, you know. So yeah, he's got my vote. We've talked about that, but so dude, I'm excited, man, and also what I wanted to say is on what you said about the idea of, you know, how dark and there's no hope. If you look at some of the original trailers, Snyder definitely was telling a lighter story, and he was very careful. There's that scene that I don't know if you remember where Barry Allen meets Bruce Wayne for the first time, and he throws the Batarang, and he's in all that moment in slow-mo, he goes, aha, this is Batman, okay, and catches it. That was all Zack Snyder's storytelling, dude. So he already started writing more humor into it. He even, and that's what I'm keen to see. I don't know if it was Josh Whedon or Zack himself that ripped on his own joke about "Do you bleed?" In the Justice League thing, where Soup says it to Batman. And I actually think that might have been Zack just trying to, like, you know, lighten up. And like you said, Superman definitely is a bigger symbol of hope. And one thing I didn't like about Justice League is, and that's where I feel maybe they took from Batman, because it doesn't seem logical or Snyder, is that he kind of like had no place in the fight scenes. He was like pew pew, and he shot guns, and he kind of hid in the thing. Whereas we've talked about that, where he would have been a mastermind of everything. One thing they did portray really nicely that I liked, and it was an unexpected arc, is where you can see Bruce Wayne feels like beaten and he's like depressed kind of, and he's talking to Wonder Woman, and he talks about how Superman is more human than he would ever be. And and I'm interested to see if Snyder touches more on that, because that wasn't reshoot stuff. As far as I know, that was original footage. So again, we're never gonna know. The only stuff you'll know is the mustache gate stuff, where they like really screwed with it. So, dude, I'm
interested to see both, and you may even do a rewatch of watch the Snyder Cut, rewatch Justice League, maybe even watch the Snyder Cut again and try and form my own comparative opinion on it. But either way, I think it's good. People have been asking for it. It's nice to see that the various voices have been heard, celebrity and general fan. I'm interested to see what the final result is, man.
Yeah, what's interesting though, dude, is, and I'll maybe wrap up here, but you have seen these little circumstances of it come off, and someone did raise a very interesting point where it's giving the fans a bit of an unhealthy sort of power grab. So, you know, because they've listened, that, you know, fans can just be like, oh, we hate this changes, and people don't just accept what's given to them to some degree. So now, I don't know if you've seen what's his name, the Suicide Squad guy, saying that there's he's surnamed Air. I think is it James Air? No, I can't remember.
James Gunn.
No, that's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, James Gunn is doing the next.
No, I'm talking about the first Suicide Squad, the first one.
Oh, okay, no, I don't.
I can't remember what his name is, but he said that there's an original cut, because remember, Warner also messed with that film too. So
yeah, well, we know that a lot of Leto's Joker stuff was removed from Suicide Squad, sadly. So if you liked what Mark and I were talking about here, or just like our content in general,
please like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more videos.
And yeah, do us a favor and find us on the social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram.
See you in the next video.